Hi everyone, this is Andy and my colleague,
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra.
and I want to introduce you to a great collaborative initiative between the Foco Academy and Foco Functional Wellness. We're both functional nutrition specialists and focus on helping people rebalance and regain their health using the principles of functional medicine to uncover the factors behind people becoming ill. Together, we have created a four-part series that addresses the factors that makes us more vulnerable to illnesses. The theme for this series is particularly important and timely, given the realities of the pandemic. It's also particularly valuable as people are taking stock of their health and wondering how they can help themselves and their families to stay well and minimize the risk of becoming ill. Throughout our discussion today, Sandra and I will be sharing information with you. As we kick this series off, it's important to put some context around the whole issue of being sick. And this is not just being sick from a disease or developing an acute or chronic condition. This is also about becoming sick from bacteria or a virus. This is because the factors that makes us sick in general are the ones that create pre-existing conditions overall. And it certainly became clear as the pandemic evolved that having pre-existing conditions dramatically impacted not only one's accessibility to disease, but also directly influenced the outcome of being diagnosed with coronavirus. Not only how quickly someone recovered, but also whether or not they actually do recover. It's also important to note that having comorbidities, meaning having more than one pre-existing condition or other factors impacting your health, also greatly swayed the outcome of being diagnosed with the virus. In the context of the virus, the importance and severity of some of these comorbidities fluctuated, though overall, the mainstays in the category are things like cancer, cardiovascular conditions like heart failure, coronary heart disease, or cardiomyopathies, chronic kidney disease, high blood pressure, immunocompromised state, meaning someone with a weakened or malfunctioning immune system, lung problems associated with asthma or COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and cystic fibrosis, neurological conditions such as dementia, and of course, there's obesity with a person having a body mass index, a BMI of 30 or higher, smoking, and both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And added to this list and increasing the complexities of people's levels of risk are also factors such as age, belong to certain ethnic backgrounds, and of course, gender.
Well, Andy, that's a rather extensive list. And not only that, but the numbers of people who have one or more of these conditions is staggering. Here
Mhm.
are just a few statistics.
Wow.
Worldwide, there are around 50 million people with dementia, with approximately 10 million new cases being diagnosed each year. In the US, more than 25 million people have asthma, with around 16 million having COPD. Regarding cancer, it is the second leading cause of death globally, with approximately
Wow.
18, it's huge, with 18 million people having it. And in the US, almost 2 million people are diagnosed each and every year. And regarding heart disease, almost half of all Americans have cardiovascular disease. So there can
Mhm.
be no denying that these conditions exist, and they do so very broadly in populations around the world. And as has been evidenced, they also greatly impact a person's ability to fight coronavirus and win. So where does our four-part series come in? Well, each part is perfectly aligned with the core strategies of how to stay healthy, or in other words, how to fight illness regardless of its source. And each of these four parts will feature a topic especially pivotal to being and staying healthy. When Andy and I taped our last webinar, we discussed how genetics influence only 30% of our overall health. That is something really important to remember because many of us feel deflated or already destined to ill health because of our genetics, because of what we were born into. But what this
Wow.
means is that the remaining 70% is not influenced by genetics, but rather by food and lifestyle factors of decisions that we all make. And it's food and lifestyle factors that actually make up our 4-part series. So we have one session related to food, and the others are dedicated to sleep, to thought, and to exercise. And regarding food, the topic we're discussing here today, there can be a lot of complexity with a lot of differing perspectives. For instance, what is a good diet and how much should I eat? When should I eat? And how is weight related to food, and how overall is health related to food? So let's get started on this.
Thank you, Sandra. There are a few food fundamentals that can help in keeping our body strong. That if you use these to guide you and influence your food-related decisions, then you're really going to be making some really great choices. Overall, the key is to choose a nutrient-dense, properly prepared whole food diet. What this means is a natural food, high in nutrition, and that is not overly cooked or highly processed. These are stark examples that follow, but it helps me to make a point. Choosing a pear over a marshmallow, a chicken breast over a fried chicken leg, and choosing soup made in your kitchen versus any soup coming from a can or dehydrated cube. Hopefully, the more nutrient-dense, whole food and healthy prepared choices seem more obvious to you. And it becomes second nature when grocery shopping or at a restaurant making a choice from a menu to use this guideline. Just ask yourself, how close to the source is this food item I am considering to purchase? Is it a potato or potato chip, crisp or French fry? Is it a salad dressing drizzled with olive oil and vinegar, or salad dressed with unpronounceable preservatives and hydrogenated oils? These are all very damaging to your cardiovascular system and specifically to your heart. In terms of diet and eating in general, this is where bio-individuality comes in. Bio-individuality means that there is no one size fits all. That every person is unique with highly individualized nutritional requirements. Our health is what we need to sustain is based on our personal differences in anatomy, cell structure, metabolism, body composition, and system function. But as we talked in our last webinar, one of the most powerful takeaways regarding how you think about food is to know that it is powerful, that food can harm the body and it can also heal and rebalance it. Ideally, that should be the quest for us all, to at some point be able to definitively know what foods fall into which category. Does this food item help or hurt my body? Outside of conducting a more methodological inquiry into this, the best way to know is to just observe your body. Did you feel good after eating that? Do you have rashes all over your body? Did you get gas or indigestion from eating something? These are all strong signals coming from your body that indicates that you should pay more attention to these and act accordingly, meaningly continue to eat it or not. These are certainly indications that your body has a sensitivity, allergy, or other inflammatory reaction to the food in question.
That's a really great point, Andy. A while back, I discovered that I'm allergic to eggs, and I love eggs, and I'd eaten them my whole life. But based on my reaction to them, it was clear that it was necessary for me to eliminate them, and I miss them. And from a nutritional standpoint, they have really great nutritional value. But from the bio-individual aspect of my body, I will need to look for those nutrients elsewhere. And this does raise the question of what could be a good diet. There are some guidelines here too as well that can be helpful for people. I use a few filters when determining this. For instance, I try to eat organically, non-GMO, genetically modified, free range, grass-fed and not grain-fed sources, and variety, lots of variety and color. And the more colorful a plate, the better. And depending on where you live, organic foods may be more costly. So a great website to use as a resource is www.ewg.org. EWG stands for Environmental Working Group. This is the group behind the Dirty Dozen you may have heard of and the Clean 15 lists. These are created each year, which suggest which foods should really be eaten organically, as well as those that they feel can be safely eaten when not organic, as in that they do not retain high levels of pesticide residue. And to just address the grass versus grain-fed food, the reasoning is that grass-fed food usually contains less total fat, which means that grass-fed food contains fewer calories. But one of the key reasons is that the fat composition of grass-fed food is much better than grain-fed, meaning that the fatty acid composition is better because it has less monosaturated fat than grain-fed. And it usually has more nutrients, including beta carotene. It has vitamins B, D, and E, and has 2 to 4 times more omega-3s and 5 times more CLAs, which are conjugated linoleic acid, a very helpful fatty acid found in meat and dairy products, known to play a role in weight loss and retaining lean muscle mass. On the flip side, grain-fed meat contains 4 times more fat, and the bad type of fat if you're trying to stay away from heart disease. And it has higher omega-6 fatty acids, which promote an undesirable omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, which can lead to, as well as sustain inflammation. And this is really important for anyone who's trying to lower inflammation in their body, and is essential for anyone dealing with certain medical conditions, especially if there's an autoimmune component to the condition, like arthritis, multiple sclerosis, lupus, inflammatory bowel disease, psoriasis, type 1 diabetes, and thyroid problems like Hashimoto's thyroiditis and Graves' disease. As a tip, anything that includes the suffix or term itis in the word means to indicate a disease related to inflammation, like tonsillitis, appendicitis, colitis, or pancreatitis. And unfortunately, there's a really long list of such words.
Thank you, Sandra. That is such amazing information. Depending on the grass-fed beef and conventional beef, and a lot of people probably don't even realize the difference, right? For sure, there's such a long list. I think with food, another question people inevitably have is how much should they eat, and this is usually linked to people's concerns regarding weight. I think this is a good time to have a look at weight. Over the 1960s and 70s, obesity rates stayed fairly similar and were fairly low. As the availability of processed and fast foods became more accessible, both in the grocery store and also at restaurants, it increased dramatically and sharply. For adults, it went up from over 13% in 1980 to almost 35% by 2008. And for children, over the same time frame, it went from 5% to 17%. Currently, these numbers are just staggering. According to the CDC, approximately 40% of adults are obese, and over 71% of adults in the US are overweight, including obese. The impact of this weight gain has taken a great toll on health, with dramatic increases in health problems and chronic diseases such as type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, and strokes, certain types of cancers, osteoarthritis, fatty liver disease, kidney disease, and lots more. But it's also important to note that the risk of dying prematurely increases, and that the risk increases with the addition of more weight. For many people who look to maintain their weight or to even lose weight, there is a great concern and focus with counting calories. From a functional nutrition perspective, I think that an easier way with dealing with this is again to follow the guideline of eating a nutrient-dense whole food, properly prepared diet. Because you really don't need to count calories when your plate is full of broccoli, green beans, potatoes, yams, lentils, onions, tomatoes, and spinach. And when you are supplementing this with fruits like apples, pineapples, black cherries, strawberries, and mangoes, wow, right? And properly preparing the foods is also an important element here also. because steaming, stir frying, or even eating some of your food raw is preferable to deep frying or even breading your food.
This is really important because the relationship food has to health becomes quite clear. The role of our immune system is to keep us well and to fight off anything that does not belong in our body. However, eating too much of the wrong food and too little of the correct food means that our body is not given the proper nutrients for our immune system to function optimally. And this has huge repercussions on our health and longevity. It means that chronic disease is on the rise and the quality of life is on the decline. And the connection between eating the wrong foods and our vulnerability to illness has a direct link. We cannot underscore the vital role of eating a nutrient-dense, whole food, properly prepared diet.
Absolutely. Your body can only perform to the standards of what you give it to function, right? So let's look at our top 5 takeaways from today to make your body less vulnerable to illnesses. These are: 1, choose nutrient-dense foods. If you find this difficult, just compare a couple of foods you're thinking of eating and choose the one that you think has more nutrient value. Simple, right? 2, maximize your intake of whole foods and reduce or cut out processed foods. 3, ensure your meals are properly prepared. Some cooking methods reduce the nutrient content of the food and can increase the bad fat content of that particular food.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, maximize your intake of organic, non-GMO, and of course, grass-fed food, right? And 5, include color on your plate. The more colorful, the better. Remember, the colors of the rainbow.
That sounds great, Andy. And we really are so happy that you chose to be with us today. And we would love for you to leave us comments on what topics you would like us to discuss in the future. And as well, if you would like additional information on what we've discussed today or in any of our other webinars, please do let us know. We're very happy to provide this information to you. So thank you so much for being here.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Sandra.
And we thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next episode.